Okay, so once again, welcome everyone to the 5th Discipline Talks. My name is Martyna, and together with Kasia, we will be your hosts today.
Hello, everyone.
Unlike a traditional lecture where the speaker presents information and the audience simply listens, Discipline Talks is designed to be a more dynamic and participatory experience. I would like to encourage you to actively participate in our discussion with our esteemed speaker, Curtis Hibbs. This is a great opportunity to learn from someone who has valuable insights and experience to share. And time for some technical details. So event is being recorded. If you don't follow our social media yet, this is a great opportunity. Not only will you learn many interesting facts, but we will also let you know when the recording will be available. For those of you who collect PDU points, they will be shown at the end and shared with you by the email. And don't forget to change Zoom username to your real name and surname so that we can verify your identity later. And we have an exciting agenda for you for today. So firstly, we will give you an overview of the Project Management Institute and the Disciplined Agile community to provide some context for today's discussion. Following this, our guest speaker, Curtis, will present on the topic of value streams management and the newest PMI micro-credentials. This will be a fantastic opportunity to learn about the latest trends and best practices in project management and to gain insights from an industry expert. After the presentation, there will be a Q&A session where you can ask Curtis questions and engage in meaningful dialogue. If you would like to ask Curtis any questions, please leave them in a chat. We will definitely get back to them soon. So sit back, relax, and get ready for an insightful and engaging discussion.
Thank you, Martyna, for introduction. So we are fully aware that some of you join our events because the topic seems interesting, which is, of course, additional motivation for us. This meeting is organized by the Project Management Institute Poland chapter and the Disciplined Agile team. So as Martyna announced, for all of you who are not yet familiar with PMI, literally, a few introductory words. PMI PC is a part of PMI Global, the world's leading professional association for a growing community of project professionals and change makers worldwide. The mission is to promote professionalism and to distribute the best practices in project management for us, the people interested in doing projects more efficiently, but also for business, various institutions, academic centers, organizations, and as well as for other non-profit organizations. Thanks to the engagement of volunteers and members with diverse professional experience and one great passion for project management, we believe that we have become the best community in the world, as well as in Poland for 20 years. And we are most proud because we've created dozens of local or topic-focused communities. Under the umbrella of PMI and PMI PC, it's possible to organize business seminars, workshops, congresses, such as, for example, International Congress PMI Project Poland chapter, PMP study groups, as well as many social projects, such as Project Management Kids Camp or external product, such as Disciplined Agile community, whose main direction is to create initiatives for developing awareness and competences related to disciplined agile approach. This Polish community was formed in January 2021, and since then support familiarization of the Polish community of project practitioners and agilists with disciplined agile toolbox. Together with Martyna and our teammates, we wanted to create a space for both experienced agilists and beginners to share knowledge, to recommend disciplined agile events around the world, promote disciplined agile mindset, and of course, certification. And in addition to that, over the last 2 years, we're building knowledge base on our social medias. However, we don't want to be limited to the Polish market. That is why we create open events like the one where we are together today. I'm sure that you're already expecting our guest speaker. So Martyna, can you tell our participants who our guest is?
Of course. So today we will meet with Curtis Hibbs, who is a Lean Agile book author, system thinker, and talk leader with a 40+ year career. He is currently a disciplined Agile through leader at PMI and a member of disciplined Agile IP team. He previously coached enterprise Lean Agile transformation after a career as a software developer and serial entrepreneur who is best known for inventing real-time closed captioning.
Hi, Curtis. We welcome you warmly. How are you today?
Hello. Oh, I'm great. And I'm really glad to be here. This is going to be fun.
I hope you have a good time today. You are full of energy and hungry for interesting questions.
Absolutely.
Perfect. So, Curtis, we are Agile leaders and people who've been chosen to be Agile change agents who have to talk to managers and want to inspire them to start thinking and working differently. And, it's always difficult to explain to them well enough what business agility is. How is this different from the mindset of an organization that has its, business goals, chosen methods and tools, well-known KPIs, OKRs, etc., etc. Could you tell us how you do it?
Well, business agility, in concept is really pretty simple. It's all about basically two things. One about delivering value to your customers, high quality value to your customers in a more timely manner. And also it's about being able to respond to change in your environment quickly, whether that's your business environment or your company environment or the competitive landscape for your products. The ability to be able to respond quickly at a reasonable cost is the second part of business agility. That's actually so the difference. Okay, so that sounds simple, but it implies a lot of things under the covers, right? If business agility is something that you want to strive for, then you really kind of have to understand what are the kinds of changes that an organization has to make in order to achieve business agility. And I personally believe that for most organizations, business agility is a journey, not a destination. It's something that never really stops, but it definitely is a different kind of mindset. There's different things that you pay attention to than what we normally or traditionally pay attention to.
I totally agree with you. So to achieve this business agility, we have to expect a long journey. Yeah, it's not something what happens within one day. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you're truly if you're truly after business agility and you're truly doing agile, then it never will end because there's always something to improve. Toyota's been improving their processes for 50 years, and they still implement changes every single day.
Yeah, so it's about having this courage to take the first step and be open to this long journey without deadline and the day. Yeah.
Right. And to understand what are the important things to pay attention to, because, and you'll see a lot of that in this presentation coming up, that a lot of the things that we're paying attention to now are actually the wrong things to pay attention to if you want to achieve business agility. So we'll talk more about that in the presentation.
Okay, you mentioned this business agility. You mentioned also the word value. If you had to explain to your grandmother, Curtis, what a value stream is, what would you say?
Okay, so I guess to explain a value stream, you have to first say, what are we talking about when we say value? Okay, so we're giving somebody something of value means that whatever you're delivering to them is actually useful. It actually makes a positive impact on their life. Whether that's, well, it can come in a lot of ways, right? It can save them money. That's a positive thing. It can save them time. That's a positive thing. It can make what they do more enjoyable. There's all sorts of different aspects to value, but the idea is that we want to deliver value to our customers. A value stream is the way that we do that. And a value stream simply is once you know what it is you want to give to your customer, whether that actually came as a request from the customer or just some bright idea that somebody had, all the steps that you have to go through in order to create that value and deliver it, all of those steps, that is the value stream.
Okay, thank you.
That was very nice explanation. I believe that now all our participants are on the same page. So I have a question as well, if I may. So nowadays, what is the biggest challenge related to value stream management?
Well, I've got kind of two answers to that. The first answer is executive leadership. Executive leadership is one of the biggest impediments to business agility. And it's because even if they want to achieve business agility, there's a prevailing attitude in a lot of executive leaders that the problem with being able to do this is actually with the people on the teams that are doing the work. And so there's this tendency to want to bring in some sort of solution to make them go agile and that tell them how to be better at delivering value, and ignoring the part that they play in the entire value stream. And the part that they play is they create the environment that these teams have to work in. And oftentimes, the environment that the executive leaders create actually sabotages the effort of trying to achieve business agility. Not that they're doing this on purpose; they just don't know. And so part of what has to happen is that we need to make executive leadership understand that their active participation is crucial. And that they won't achieve business agility without their actively actually driving the agile transformation themselves. So that's one answer, and that's a big one. That's kind of like the political answer. The process answer is the biggest impediment to agility, to delivering value in a timely manner, are delays. And you'll see that in the presentation. I've spent a lot of time talking about it. The number one problem is delays in the value stream. We talked about the value stream being these steps, from beginning to end that happen to be able to enable you to deliver value. but those steps have delays built in. It doesn't just flow smoothly from beginning, start to finish. There's all kinds of delays that happen in the middle, and delays are the number one enemy of a value stream.
Cool, thanks a lot. I believe that after this brief introduction, we can move on to the presentation. So, Curtis, the stage is yours.
All right, let me share my screen here. Share. Okay, come on. There we go. Does that look right? Everybody see that full screen?
Looks perfect.
Okay. Okay, so this is a short introductory presentation about value stream management. And it's basically a very abbreviated version of an online e-learning class on value stream management that PMI offers. And there'll be information about that class at the end of this slide deck. That class itself is an abbreviated version of an instructor-led class called the DA Value Stream Consultant. It's meant for people who are working kind of as internal or external change makers or consultants in trying to improve the value stream of their company, or if they're actually an external consultant, other companies. So let's see, you already know who I am, so we'll skip over that. So this is the basic list of topics that I'm gonna go through today. So talk a little bit about enterprise agility. I can go through that quickly because we already talked about that. Then we're going to talk about something about our inherent problem. This is the big problem that we've created in how we manage people and work, and how we need to change our focus to align with the value streams. Then we're going to talk about value streams themselves, and then we're going to talk about two aspects of problems with value stream and with attitude towards. Actually, these map really nicely to those two areas that I just said. Utilization versus throughput is actually largely driven by the business side, the executive leadership. And then we're going to spend some time talking about how delays are our number one enemy, which I already mentioned. Okay, so what is enterprise agility? This is basically what I said before. It's the timely realization of business value, but predictably, sustainably, and with high quality. So, those three aspects are really important, because if you're missing any one of those three things, you're not going to achieve enterprise agility. And it's also the ability of an organization to rapidly adapt to market and environmental changes, and do that in a low-cost manner. This is also referred to as business agility or organizational agility. We've kind of settled on the DA team and in PMI, we've kind of settled on using the term enterprise agility, because whenever we talk about business agility, we get questions or pushback from groups that are not businesses, like government teams and that sort of thing. So enterprise agility seems to cover everybody. Organizational agility actually is a nice term, but it's harder to say and longer, I guess. Who knows? Anyway, so why are we interested in enterprise agility? These are the outcomes that most organizations are looking for, looking to achieve by pursuing enterprise agility. They want to improve their ability to find and seize opportunities that come about in the marketplace. They want to improve their delivery performance, their financial performance, their customer experience, their employee engagement, and just their resilience as an organization, so that they can weather changes in the environment, their marketplace environment. So the companies that are actually doing some form of have achieved some form of enterprise agility and doing it fairly well, they're basically out competing with everybody else in the marketplace, and the kind of the apex competitors in this area are companies like Amazon and Google and Apple. So if you want to compete in the marketplace, basically enterprise agility is becoming a competitive necessity. Depending on what business you're in, that may, you may have some time still. In many areas, if you're not working towards this now, it's already too late. So it's definitely the area to be paying attention to. And as far as a project professional, having skills and knowledge in the area of achieving enterprise agility, especially through value streams, is a growing skill. So it's a good way, not only to just enjoy your job better, because knowing that you're making a difference, or that you can make a difference, is really satisfying in your job, and the fact that this is becoming a more in-demand skill is just, it's a perfect time. So, this slide is all about the fact that enterprise agility is a journey, not a destination. It's like we're never actually going to get there. We're just going to get better than what we are now. And so, I thought this was cute, so I just had to put it in here. Okay, so let's talk just a little bit about what our inherent problem is. So this is a really common organizational structure that you'll find in lots of companies. You have all of these departments, and people are kind of siloed in these departments. And gee, I lost what I was going to say there. Anyway, so if you notice that this has us focus on people, this kind of organization. Management focuses on people. We focus on them being utilized and not sitting around with nothing to do. We focus and we focus on the quality of the work that they do individually, and to make sure that they're working on the right things, alignment with the company. And those are good things up to a point. Although, as you'll see, I'll have some issues with being properly utilized and what that means, but that's coming up. So, but this organization is very different from the work itself. So, if you look at how the work flows through the organization, it crosses all of these organizational boundaries. It does not flow top down like the people are organized. This causes problems because managers in each of these areas, they have competing priorities. They have conflicts in messages that they send to their teams. All of this causes waste of one kind or another. So we manage people this way, even though value flows this way. The biggest problem is that usually nobody is managing the value. Everybody is busy in their own organization managing the people, and nobody is managing the value stream. It's just kind of left to happen on its own. So this is the value stream. If you look at this diagram from the point of view of a piece of work that's flowing through the company and getting done and delivered to the customer. So this is the definition of a value stream, which we also already covered. Set of actions that takes place to add value to a customer from initial request through the realization of value by the customer. That's kind of like the standard definition. Oh, I forgot to mention up front, if you have questions, put them in the chat now, because I've asked them to interrupt me to answer questions while we're going, because it's a lot of times it's best to answer questions while we're still in the right context. So don't hesitate to ask your questions as we go. So a value stream always begins and ends with the customer. Sometimes that's an external customer. Sometimes it's actually an internal customer. Yeah, okay, so this is just emphasizing that the value stream focuses on the work, not the people doing the work. So this brings up the question, how often does work wait? And so we're looking at this value stream here, and there's approvals that have to happen, that maybe the work has to go off to a different group and then come back. But in any case, a lot of the time the work is spent, my sentence isn't coming out right. A lot of times the work is waiting and there's not actual work being done. What percentage of the time is the work moving forward, and how much of the time is it actually waiting? You've probably heard of a value stream map. A value stream map is, we don't really recommend doing value stream maps, at least not full value stream maps, because they're real expensive to do. But when someone does a value stream map, they basically lay out the value stream and put in actual timing values, measured time for how much time the work is spent moving forward and how much time it's waiting. And for people or teams that have done this, the answer is really shocking. It's not unusual for work to be, for only like 5% of the time work is being done and 95% of the time that it's waiting. That's not unusual at all. 15% time working and 85% time waiting is actually really good. Those are companies that are doing, or value streams that are doing really, really well. So these numbers are shockingly low in terms of how much of our time is spent moving the work forward. But in most companies, how would you know? Because nobody's managing the value stream, nobody's looking at it, nobody's measuring it. You have no idea. The only thing that you know is that it takes you forever to get something out the door.
Hi, Curtis.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
There's one question in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
So I will read this. How to recognize departments, people who generate the value stream? How about the department that doesn't create value itself, for example, as compliance?
Okay, well, okay, so that's kind of a special case. If so in lean, not agile, but in lean, we talk about three kinds of value. There are three kinds of work. There's value added work, and that's when the work is actually moving forward. You're doing something on it. There's non-value added work, which is things that don't provide any value whatsoever. They tend to be excessive approvals and structural problems, like when a piece of work has to go off to another team and they're busy doing other things, so they can't get to it right away, and it takes a long time for them to get to it and send it back to you to continue. But there's this third type of work called non-value added but necessary. And that's things that are just part of the cost of doing business. You have to do them even though they're not adding value. And that would be things like regulatory compliance and these sorts of things. Now, sometimes, most of the time, there's nothing you can do about the non-value added but necessary, because they're necessary. But sometimes what we think is necessary is only partly necessary. Like there might be a compliance. Maybe, for example, there's legal compliance or quality compliance. If you're like in something like healthcare and you have to have failure means somebody dies. A lot of times these non-value added but necessary can be expanded beyond what's really needed. So sometimes companies will implement their compliance efforts in a way that they're actually going above and beyond with no actual benefit for doing that. And so in those cases, it's still worthwhile to look at these non-value added but necessary steps to see if maybe part of that actually is not necessary and could be cut out. Hopefully that answered the question. So one of this inherent problem in the way we manage people instead of managing the work. One of the problems that this structure causes, is this desire of managers to keep their people busy, thinking that someone who's just sitting around doing nothing, it's just a waste. And so there's this desire to keep people 100% busy all the time, which turns out actually to be a problem. But this is an analogy that most people can identify with. So if you imagine that this is a team producing value for a company, all these cars on a highway, and somebody, some customer or manager or executive comes in and says, I need to add this to your workload, and you look at your little utilization map and you say, well, sorry, we're full up. We don't have any capacity to do that work right now. And that person can look at it and say, but wait a minute, there's an empty spot. You could just slot my stuff right in there and get it done. And there's another spot. But we all know what happens if you've got this kind of situation on a highway. What happens when you add more traffic? Do things go faster? No, they slow down. In fact, they slow down so much that almost nothing gets done. What we really want to focus on is throughput. How much work is making it through the entire value stream and actually getting delivered? That's the important part. And it turns out that you cannot do that if you are utilizing your people at 100%. There needs to be slack in there. And there's actually, there's actually mathematical proofs on this. It's in queuing theory. This is actually a well-known issue, but management doesn't seem to have gotten that message. So this is one of the big things that we have, that moving to a value stream focus instead of a top-down people focus is going to help you correct this kind of problem, because you're going to be focusing on the flow of the work, on the throughput, not on the utilization of the people. So what's the objective of improving the value stream? It's basically to realize the highest amount of business value in a shorter amount of time. And those are the three areas that we mentioned before in the definition, because this is consistently, sustainably, and with high quality. So how do we do this? One of them is to attend to delays in the workflow. As I already mentioned, delays in the workflow can be as much as 85 or 95% of the time that the work is flowing through the value stream. And so there's lots of opportunities to reduce or eliminate delays. So the idea is you don't focus on working faster. That's only 5% of the problem. Focus on removing delays. Focus on the 95% of the problem. The other part is that you can't manage what you can't see. So you have to do whatever is necessary to make the work flowing through the value stream visible in some way. Because until you can actually see it, you can't manage it, you can't identify where the problems are, and you can't fix them very reliably. And making it visible will, in fact, force a focus on the workflow and not on the people. So somebody said this somewhere, but we don't know who, so we just attributed this to just general wisdom. But there's more value in eliminating delays in your workflow than there is in doing the work faster.
Curtis, before
Yes.
you move forward, can we do a short break for that? Because there's a really interesting question in the chat, because our participants are asking very good questions. And there's a question about responsibility, or maybe more about accountability. In an organization, who is responsible to achieve the value stream, or the value stream management, or the value stream processes? Because maybe someone you would like to share or to explain more.
Yeah,
Sure.
I am someone from Sri Lanka. So in an organization, whose main job is to achieve the value stream in a project or when you're doing the work. When there are different clusters in the organization, who is responsible to achieve the value stream?
Yes. Okay, that's a really good question. So there's a short answer and a long answer. The short answer, well, if the question, I know there's multiple questions there, but if we at first focus on the question, whose job is it to pay attention to the value stream, I guess, and well, anyway, the short answer is everyone. Everyone's responsible, but they're responsible in different ways. So the people that are in the value stream actually doing the work, they're responsible for doing their part with minimal delays. They're responsible for improving their own internal process at their step in the value stream, but they're also responsible for looking upstream and downstream in the value stream and making sure that any change that they make to make their work go more smoothly doesn't adversely impact somebody else upstream or downstream. Because one of the problems that happens is if there's not awareness of the value stream and who's in it and who's doing different pieces, it's real easy to optimize what we call in lean, we say optimize locally or sub-optimize. In other words, that a particular team will optimize their work process, but oftentimes it'll be at the expense of somebody else, and they just made somebody else's job harder, and that the net benefit is zero or even negative. So it's everybody on the team is responsible for understanding the part they play in the value stream and looking not only at their work, but the impact they have on the rest of the value stream, upstream and downstream. The executive leadership or the business that is feeding work into the value stream is responsible for making sure that they don't overload the value stream. This is that utilization problem, because if they're overloading the value stream and putting too much work into it, that will actually slow everything down. So they need to understand the part that they play. They also play a part in kind of creating the overall environment that this value stream operates within, and making sure that the actions that they take as leaders are always oriented towards helping the value stream work more smoothly and not actually impeding it. There's a lot of times that executive leaders or managers will take actions that they think make sense, and maybe on paper they do, but if you look at how they work in the real world in the value stream, they actually slow everything down. And if they don't know that, if there's no feedback mechanism to tell them that, they'll never know that they're actually hurting their delivery and not helping. And then thirdly, somebody has to actually be in charge of the value stream. Right now, nobody's in charge. It needs to be somebody's job. Somebody needs to be the value stream manager. And the value stream manager is responsible for making sure that everybody else is doing their part and playing together and looking for opportunities to improve the value stream, maybe working collaboratively with other people. Maybe there's a value stream improvement team. There definitely ought to be a value stream improvement backlog, things that have been identified, but you can't do everything all at once. And the value stream manager would be responsible for making sure that all the work is visible, taking whatever steps needs to happen if it's not, as well as diagnosing problems and looking for ways to improve it. So the value stream manager part is usually missing. The leadership part is usually either unaware of the part that they play, or they're not getting the kind of feedback they would need to understand if their actions are positive or negative. And the people in the value stream generally are concerned only with their own work and their team and making that work as smoothly as possible. They don't usually look upstream and downstream, and that's part of what they need to do. So that's the long version of everyone. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so this is an interesting realization on the reality of delays in the workflow. So we're going to see a series of bars here, but this is what we think happens. We think that people there's a certain capacity for doing work, and that people can do productive work 100% of that time. We all know that's not true, but a lot of planning tends to take place assuming that's true. But some of that time is actually spent overcoming problems like quality issues, like technical debt and these sorts of things. And so that actually reduces the percentage of our time that we can spend doing productive work. Then there's the issue of rework, work that wasn't done properly and comes back and we have to do it over again. In software, we call those bugs. In manufacturing, those are defects that have to come back to be corrected. Also, handoffs and handbacks can cause rework issues, because anytime there's a handoff, there's always a loss of information, and that causes questions that people will answer for themselves instead of going back and getting the right answer, and that'll cause rework. There's all sorts of issues with that, but that also further reduces the percentage of time we have to do productive work. And then there's this thing that we call induced work. it's actually the work that's created by delays. The classes that the DA value stream consultant and the value stream manager classes actually go into this in more detail. But induced work is things like whenever there's a delay in the workflow, that actually ends up creating more work. And the simplest example of that is usually if you have to take you've got work that's coming into your group, you need to do something and send it on to the next step in the value stream. But as part of that work, it actually has to go off to somebody else for something to happen, whether it's an approval or some actual work, and then it comes back to you to finish the work. The fact that you have to do that generally means that while that's off waiting for this other thing to happen, you're starting to do other kinds of work. And so when this piece of work comes back, there's actually more work than there was originally, because now you have to refamiliarize yourself with what that work was, where you left off, and where you have to pick up. It's kind of like getting back up to speed with it. If you have a lot of these things going off and getting work somewhere else, you probably have to put them on a queue, and you have to track them. And when they come back, you have to prioritize which one gets done first. All of that work none of that work would have to happen if the delay wasn't there. If the work came in and you could just proceed from beginning to end, do your part and send it on, none of that extra work would even exist. So that's what we call induced work. So that reduces the percentage of time that you have available to do productive work even more. And then there's the one that everybody already talks about, which is multitasking, which doesn't really create more work. It just lowers your efficiency. Like this says, multitasking is usually considered to be the main problem, but it's really not. It's the extra work created due to delays is the main problem. So while we think that bar on the left is the way things work, what really happens is the one on the right. And the amount of time that we actually have to do productive work is a fraction of what we think it is. So this diagram represents something we call the idealized value stream, or at least an idealized value stream for development work. So every value stream in a particular organization specifically is going to be different. But if you're doing development work, this pretty much tracks what happens. There's going to be little details down below this, but having this kind of notional idealized value stream makes it easier for us to talk about the value stream and identify problems. This particular diagram is used extensively in our classes. But one of the things that goes on here is you can see that we've got basically two sides here. We've got a business side and a development side. And the business side is where things like business strategies and initiatives happen. It's where we go through some sort of discovery process to figure out what it is that we want to do. But eventually that results in work being handed to the development side to actually complete. And then they have all these steps that they go through. And I think I mentioned this earlier, but most people on the business side, when they look at how long it takes to deliver to the customer, think that the problem with that excessively long amount of time is actually on the development side. And oftentimes the problem is not on the development side, at least not entirely. Oftentimes the problem is being created by the management and leaders on the business side without their knowing it. And we've talked about that quite a bit so far. Sorry, I meant to do that. So the So some of the issues that happen in a development value stream are it takes too long to get anything done, and there's not any visibility. There's a lack of visibility in the workflow. We've talked about this, but there's other things that can be problems. There's problems that can happen on the business side. There are problems that can happen on the development side. And I'm sure most of you have experienced at least some of these things. So these are all issues that delays in the workflow and other issues surface as these symptoms in the idealized value stream. And we actually use something similar to this as a diagnostic tool to help identify opportunities for improvement in the value stream. That's in our classes. So some value streams will have other issues. So if you have a value stream that's like a hardware project, like maybe you're developing an aircraft, and that's got software and hardware involved, and aircraft also is government regulated. There's a lot of regulations and compliance issues that those are the value streams there are going to be different than in areas where those things don't exist. That particular value stream was for multiple business stakeholders supplying work to multiple teams. There are other possibilities, and we're not going to go into those here because this is too short of a time to do any justice to those areas. But just be aware that there's not just one kind of value stream. In general, though, we do like to, I do like to, you can divide value streams into categories, but the most useful categories that I find are development value streams and operational value streams. So development value streams develops the product. Operational value streams are the ones that actually the customers interface with. So whatever product you're using, the customers interface with the operational side of that. And then everything else I throw into something called a support value stream. You can divide things up in other ways, but those three categories make it easy and useful, provide useful ways to talk about value streams and how to improve them. So there's a couple books mentioned here: Age of Agile by Steve Denning and Humocracy by Hamill. Actually, I never knew who did that. Anyway, they talk about different kinds of value streams. So those are nice resources. And that's actually the end of the presentation. This is the e-learning class. This is a screenshot of the landing page for North America. So I know it's going to be different for you, but anyway, this is what's on the slide. And I guess we're open for questions now.
Thank you for the great dose of knowledge, Curtis. I'm totally inspired. And now I think how to use tips, how to improve the value stream.
Good.
Okay, guys, do you have any questions? So maybe we can think about them. Okay.
We have the first one.
Yeah, thank you. Then Anya, could you read them?
Yeah. So the first one is, what is the difference between the micro-credential and DAVSC credential?
Okay, so the value stream management e-learning is basically an abbreviated version of the DAVSC. So it does more than this presentation, but it goes into more detail about value stream management and what you need to do and things you need to pay attention to and the reasons why. the value stream consultant class goes into way more detail than that, and also includes, as part of the class, the diagnostic tool that I mentioned that uses that idealized value stream diagram that I showed. We have a diagnostic tool and a that you use with people in the value stream and management to sit down and have a collaborative session for looking at the issues in your value stream and identifying opportunities for improvement. And that diagnostic tool actually ends with having created a value stream improvement backlog.
So taking this opportunity, I have a question also about micro-credentials. I would like to ask basically, where did the idea for micro-credentials come from, and what value do they add in general for PMI?
Okay, well, I'm not really sure where they came from. I think they already existed when I joined PMI, but I could be mistaken about that. I'm actually somewhat new to PMI. Maybe I won't be able to say that much longer. I've been there for 3 years now, but there's other people who've been there for like 30 years, so I still feel like I'm new. So I'm not really sure where they came from, but the idea is that there are a number of specialized topics that people are interested in knowing more about, and that don't require, a very expensive 3-day or 4-day long, 8 hours a day workshop. So the idea is to provide some smaller kind of targeted information on certain knowledge areas that will be useful in your work, and that you might find useful in putting on your resume or CV. And so that's the purpose of the micro-credentials. And so this particular one is about people who are interested in promoting the idea of identifying and improving the value stream that they work in at work, and possibly even trying to make a case for becoming the value stream manager, because ultimately somebody has to be responsible for the value stream and making sure that everything is visible and that the improvement opportunities are being worked and that sort of thing. So there's a need for a value stream manager, and if your company already realizes that, then this is something that can help you kind of move into a position like that. If your company doesn't do that already, then this could help you convince them to do it.
Thanks. I see that we have one more question coming from the chat. What steps to consider to improve poor discovery intake process?
So that's kind of hard to answer in isolation. The bigger problem is upstream of that, is identifying so the whole thing about this discovery process and the upstream parts of strategies and initiatives, this is all kind of in the area of portfolio management, but it's more than portfolio management, because it's not just managing the stuff that you have already in work or on the board, so to speak, but it's also about paying attention to the marketplace and the needs of your customers, and discovering what unfilled needs that they have, that your organization could actually address. I don't think I can say much beyond that because it's not my area of expertise. I'm not a big expert on portfolio management and discovery. So I can talk about it generally, but in terms of specific, practices or techniques, I am the wrong person to talk to.
But I would share one tip, if I may, because
Sure.
if we, for example, use a disciplined Agile browser, and we can, and we can, of course, discover that we have, for example, issue in with intake work, and then we can ask us the question in which area we discovered this intake work. Is that, for example, issue with prioritizing? Is that, for example, issue with increasing value? Or this is in the area of portfolio or vendor management? So there are, so maybe depends on where we had a problem to solve, then we can discover that there is intake work.
Yeah, that's a really good point. In a lot of these cases, using the DA browser is a good way to discover what your options might be in a particular case, or even if you're not sure what your goals ought to be. You can actually use the browser to look at the various areas that are covered in the goals and the decisions that need to be made for those goals. So there's a lot of information in there, and it's sometimes just using that for your own personal discovery is a good way to go.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, Martyna, just follow. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm gonna take back the screen if you don't mind.
Certainly.
So, and we will continue with questions. So guys, if you would like to ask anything, that's the perfect moment. And that being said, we have one more question to our guest. So value stream from the perspective of disciplined Agile is DA Flex. Could you explain what is it and what to use it for?
Well, yes. Well, basically, DA Flex is just a branding for the value stream and value stream improvement information that's part of disciplined Agile. It's actually as simple as that. It's Flex stands for Flow for Enterprise Transformation, I believe. And it's just the like I said, it's the name that covers that area of value streams and value stream improvement. I'm repeating myself, sorry.
No problem. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you have a question for Curtis. Hello. Considering the Flex, what is, in your opinion, the level of integration in the DA toolkit today? Because it looks like still a work in progress, right?
Yes, actually it is. So the Flex stuff and the sorry, my brain just went on vacation. So all of the information on value streams and Flex came from a separate company, Net Objectives and Al Shalloway, and PMI. after PMI bought DA from Scott Ambler and Mark Lyons and brought them on board, Scott and Mark convinced PMI to actually buy Net Objectives and all of its value stream intellectual property, because they realized that Disciplined Agile at that time mostly focused on team level issues, and did not have very much, if anything, in the value stream area. So yeah, Net Objectives and its IP was acquired several years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, and we've been trying to get all that integrated since that time. It's still a work in progress, as you mentioned. It's a fair amount of work. Most of the information from Net Objectives is actually present in the website in the detailed pages, although they may not be organized as well as they could be. We can improve that, and we're working on getting the information from that into the browser in the goals, decision points, and options trees, and we're kind of spotty on that right now. We're working on that to improve it, and we're also getting ready to. I can't say too much about this, but we're getting ready to launch a community collaboration effort of some sort to help us get input from people like you to help us fill some of the gaps that we have.
Okay, thank you.
We have one more question. The picture is designed for software development companies and value streams. How does it apply to other industries / kind of products, services, for example, marketing, HR, or consultancy services and projects?
So I would put marketing and HR and those sorts of things into the kind of support enabling area. So HR, for example, doesn't directly deliver value to customers, but they enable the teams within the company they can be enablers or impediments, depending on how they do their job, to the rest of the teams in the company that are providing value or delivering value to customers. So I think I'm not sure that the HR and marketing aspect is as useful as, well, kind of depends on who you're talking to. So, but as actually talking, one of the things that I like to say is that a lot of this stuff came out of was born in the software development area. But the concepts, many of the practices, not all, but many of the practices and the concepts and the issues are equally applicable outside of software development. One of the things that we're doing right now is we're re-examining all of the classes that we have and trying to make sure that they are not strict, they are not just software centric. That at any time that we provide an example of a practice or a principle or an issue, and we use a software development example, we try to make sure that we provide at least 1 or 2 non-software examples also, so that people can see how you can take the principles behind this stuff and move it into areas outside of software, and that's easier to imagine if you have concrete examples. So I'm not sure if I quite answered the question, but I hope so.
I think yes. So if there will be any additional questions, guys, you can write in the chat. Curtis, the last question from my side. It will be not so easy question. I promised you also before the meeting that there will be no easy question. Can you provide some examples of the application of the specific practices which are connected to the process goals from discipline Agile that have proven to achieve high performance for value stream management? And if yes, what were these situations? How were they implemented, or what elements were included, and what problems were solved?
Okay, I'm not going to be able to be that specific.
Okay.
Yeah, because I'm going to be a little bit more general about it. But if I was going to be that specific, I'd actually have to sit down and think of past engagements that I was involved in and examples of that sort of thing. I'm not sure I can just dredge that up out of my memory when I've been out of the business of actually doing that for about 4 years now. But there are, I hate to be too general, but these are really important. So probably the most important practice that you can implement, however you want to go about it, is making the workflow visible. Because until you do that, you can't, you're going to be severely hobbled or constrained in trying to do anything else. The workflow needs to be visible. You need to be able to see, where it's flowing, the work is flowing through well, and where it's not. And if you can't see that, and you don't have at least a general idea of how big or how long your bottleneck delays are, you're not really going to be able to improve. So that's, in my mind, that's really the highest priority, is making the workflow in the value stream visible. Beyond that, it's kind of a litany of standard lean principles, more so than Agile. But Agile borrows all these, so it's really the same in the end. Things like delivering incrementally instead of waiting to the end. Getting rapid feedback, so you make sure that you're going in the right direction instead of veering off into something that's useless. These are the kinds of things. Rapid feedback is important because if you're not getting it, you don't know if what you're producing is actually being valuable or not. And the longer you wait to find that out, the more expensive it becomes to pivot to something that is better. So maybe if I simplified it to 2 things, I would say make it visible and shorten your feedback loops as much as possible.